Well, how's it going out there today again, boys and girls in sporting land? This is JPC with J&J Outlaw Sports, and you guys know exactly what you are. You are the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. I'm going to try to get faster and faster. Thing is, I trip over my tongue a little bit because I'm a little clumsy sometimes when I get to talking too fast. So, today, class, what we have is an epiphany here. The football gods come unto me as they always do, and they spoke unto me, and they said unto JPC, they said, JPC, the Oklahoma Sooners, the team that you've done quite a few podcasts on, holds the key to the entire college football landscape. That one little panhandle state in the middle of the United States, ironically, holds the key to maybe a seismic type shift in the college football landscape. But before I get to that and explain to you why they hold that key, I'd like to ask you guys and gals once again, as I always do, to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. I know the word subscription is always invoked you having to pay for something, but on YouTube, they have their faults, but for subscriptions, guess what? They're all free and they're all fun. And it lets you guys and gals know when I'm up and on the air. Now let's get right to it. The Oklahoma Sooners, who have done some good podcasts on and some bad, and there's probably a reason why. And then, like I said, the football gods told me. And they said to me, JPC, if Oklahoma were to ever decide to bow up on Texas and tell Texas, you know what, Texas? You've been holding this great Red River rivalry over our head for quite some time. Texas A&M got tired of your mess. Colorado, Nebraska, Missouri, they all got tired of your mess, Texas. So we're leaving. We're leaving. We're taking Oklahoma State with us because they're our little stepbrother and they do what we say. We're going to take Oklahoma State and possibly anywhere from 5 to 7 other members of this conference. And you can have it all to yourself, Texas. If Oklahoma were to do that, and it's not the conference that you're thinking, it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten, it's the Pac-12. If Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were to leave, I guarantee you these other teams in Texas, maybe not Texas Tech because they're intertwined with Texas somehow like Oklahoma State is with Oklahoma, but we could see Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, maybe, TCU, Baylor, Kansas, and Kansas State all leave for the Pac-12, and maybe even Iowa State. But I'm thinking if this seismic type shift takes place, that Iowa State may end up going to a more geographically apt conference for them, and that being the Big Ten, and that way they could have the rivalry with Iowa no longer have to be a non-conference game, and they would start picking up Nebraska as well, which would probably have some good games as well. So, if that were to happen, I also think this is how scary this is, how much power Oklahoma yields, and they don't even know it. If they were to do that and go to the Pac-12 and make it the Pac-20, you would see other conferences doing the same thing. Another conference that would lose out in all this, in my opinion, though, and this may be surprising to some, is the ACC. Because right now the ACC is more of a basketball conference, as usual, but they have Clemson, and North Carolina is making some noise. They look like they're trying to rise up. Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech sometimes. But all these teams would get cannibalized into the SEC, in my opinion, if Oklahoma were to do that. The domino effect that the Oklahoma Sooners could hold upon the whole college football landscape is quite enormous, and something I should have thought of a long time ago. Because Oklahoma State and the rest of them, they'll either follow Oklahoma or they'll follow Texas. And my bet is, with the way things have been going, the way Nebraska and Missouri and Colorado and Texas A&M left, especially Texas A&M because that was a big-time rivalry with Texas, the other teams may finally come to see the light, with the exception of Texas Tech. And then you'd have the Pac-20. The SEC would cannibalize, in my opinion. I got a list here. The SEC would cannibalize, in my opinion, North Carolina State, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech, possibly Virginia Tech. But my opinion, Virginia Tech may end up being in the cannibalization part of the Big Ten. Like I said, there's so many scenarios that I could think of with this, especially with the ACC being cannibalized at this point. The big hangup has always been, especially with Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, is the other in-state schools that are part of the SEC. Now, Georgia's never really said anything. Georgia Tech used to be a part of the SEC, so Georgia may not have an issue with Georgia being it. But the other teams like South Carolina and Florida, the Gators, have an issue with the other in-state schools joining the conference because they feel like it's going to affect their recruiting. And they could be right. But I think it's all trivial in the grand aspect of things. If Oklahoma were to do this, Florida and South Carolina would have to sit down and just shut up. And shouldn't have to have a conference membership dictate whether you can out-recruit your in-state rival to begin with. You should be able to do that on your own. And if you can't, then take notes from Alabama, who out-recruits Auburn every year. In my opinion, Oklahoma out-recruits Oklahoma State every year. And they're all in the same conference. So let's not, I don't want to hear that BS. Tennessee, even though they haven't been that great here lately, they usually out-recruit Vanderbilt. Okay? So that's a BS excuse. That's just them being scared of Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. So, the Big Ten, in my opinion, would cannibalize. I got it right here. It become the Big 20, of course. I think the Big 20 would cannibalize Iowa State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Boston College, and possibly you'd have West Virginia, who was also in the Big 12, would probably end up joining the Big 20. Now, you could also insert West Virginia in the SEC. Like I said, there's so many scenarios. You could flip-flop here, and you could call me out and say, hey, that wouldn't fit. This is the way it needs to be. But I also think that Missouri should join the Big 20 if that were to happen. I think Missouri would also be in the mix to join the Big 20 and maybe leave the SEC for a more apt geographical situation for them. Not that they're scared to stay in the SEC because they've won 2 divisional titles. I just think it would be a better fit for Missouri if they were to join the Big 20, which is right now the Big 10. If that were to happen in that scenario, there might be some teams that may not, in the ACC, that may not end up in a big-name conference. And then what I think would happen is the AAC would possibly step up and take the rest of the ACC and then become a Power 4 conference. And with this scenario that I've got, you would also possibly have BYU joining the Pac-20 as well, or someone like Boise State. And you'd have a total of probably 80 teams that would have a legitimate shot at the national championship every year. Now, that could all change if they were to go to the 12-team playoff, which I think they're going to do. So you'd still have the possibility of Mountain West, Conference USA, and the Sun Belt getting in the playoffs, so they couldn't complain about, oh, this is unfair, blah, 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 blah. But there they are. That's the laid out scenarios that could happen if the Oklahoma Sooners decided to sort of get a more strengthened spine and finally stand up to Texas and say, hey, man, we're done. Also, on the independent scene, I think all you would have at that point would be Texas and Notre Dame. They've always wanted to be independent. They want to be pissy about joining a conference. They want to have all their own money. They don't want to share. Well, then they want to be in a conference for other sports. But that day is coming to an end very soon, in my opinion. Texas and Notre Dame, their greed with NBC and the Longhorn Network Maybe they're undoing. So they may need to think this thing through before something like this happens, and join a conference as well. If they want to stay independent, they can. I don't think it's in their best interest, but they can do what they want to do. I really don't care either way, because to me they've always been pretty selfish when it comes, and sort of an elitist in thinking that they're above the fray when they're really not. So that's my scenario on how Oklahoma could change the entire landscape of college football, make the dominoes fall every which ways. You guys and gals tell me what you think. Drop it in the comment section and tell me if you got any great scenarios, because there's so many scenarios out there that I probably hadn't thought of that you guys and gals probably have. And with that, I'm going to get off of here. And like, share, comment, and what? Subscribe, man. Please give me those subscriptions. We're almost there. We're halfway to 1,000. Once we get to 1,000, I'm going to try to hold a multi-tailgate party for all the great fans in a neutral location somewhere. Pie in the sky dream thing, but hey, dreams do come true from time to time. And with that, I'm going to get off of here. KMCA to all the other teams.